All right, what's up? What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Ask Me Anything from the BYOB Money School Money Multiplier team. We have the Money Mentors in the house. We're going to answer all your questions. Hopefully, everyone's having a great day today. Mr. Chris Noggle, quick update. If you were planning on meeting Chris out in San Diego, his flight got canceled, so he will not be at the event tonight. So hopefully nobody's on their way there right now, but just know that's canceled. And he will be there tomorrow, though, for the event that's going on out there in San Diego. With that being said, we'll do a quick around the horn, quick introductions. Get your questions in the chat box. We'll answer all of those here shortly. See you in 14 seconds. All right, here we go. So welcome to another Ask Me, brought to you by the BYOB Money Multiplier Money Mentor team. We're here to answer all your questions around infinite banking, finance, investing, real estate, HELOCs, whatever you want to get into. So with that being said, my name's Stephen Nagy. I'll be co-hosting the show today with the rest of this team, and here to answer all your questions. What's up, Brian?
Hello, everybody. Brian Fouch here up in northern Idaho. Yeah, we've been on some calls today. This is our third, I think, one. Joe was just mentioning that. But yeah, we've been on a lot of calls today. Wednesday seems to be our busiest day, but a lot of good questions this morning with Joe and I and Steven on there. So looking forward to continue those questions. So get those questions into there, and we'll get them answered. So over to Mr. Yenny.
Good afternoon, Craig Yenny here, and I hail from the south part of the Denver area in the nice Rocky Mountains. But yeah, just here to answer questions. So I see we've got a few in the queue, so get them in there. We'll answer them. We'll answer just about anything, I think. But anyway, let's go ahead and go on down to Ethan.
Hello. Ethan Evans here, coming from the mid-Michigan area. I've been having a lot of storms and stuff the last couple of days. Thankfully, power's still on here at the Evans house. So yeah, excited to answer some questions either from the agent side, also on the implementation side. Excited to talk infinite banking. Moving over to Carson.
What's up, everybody? Southern California, your youngest money mentor on the team. Been doing IBC with the team for about 3 years. Been wonderful. Excited to be here on AMA today. I should have been counting. We all should have been counting, but this is probably my 100th AMA, if I had to guess, somewhere around there over the past 3 years. Who knows? But we're always glad to be here on Wednesdays. Thank you guys for joining. I'll head over to Jason.
Awesome new setup, Carson. Glad to be here. Still in the city beautiful, as Steven knows and loves. Happy to be here with all you, answering your questions and just having some fun with you all too. And down to my brother, Joe K from New York.
So I'm Joe, and up in Buffalo with Chris. And the reason why he couldn't take off, I guess, is we're supposed to have some tornadoes in the area. So my house is still here, and I'm still here, so everything's still good. So hopefully we stay status quo like that. Here to answer your questions. Get them in. So
if you drop off, we'll know why.
Exactly.
See him flying away.
Dorothy. Yeah, guys, get those questions in the chat box. We'll get it rolling though here. So I'll go ahead and start reading the questions out here. So Joshua Bennett said, how do I be an honest banker when my whole paycheck goes into my sweep account to keep my first position HELOC balance down? HELOC 6.25% promo first year, life insurance loan 7%.
So is he doing he must be doing the one pot system. So everything needs to go into the HELOC. He is being an honest banker because he's paying himself first. He's being in control. He's utilizing the HELOC. Now, when we utilize that money and put that into investing, that is where the calculations will come out. So if he has a $400,000 HELOC and he owes $100,000 to his policy, once there's $500,000 in opportunities, making him cash flow, that would turn him into debt free. Because when the opportunities come back in, he could just fill up the HELOC, fill up the policies. All he's doing now is using leverage. He's using arbitrage and making money. Money not in motion does not make money. So I think you're on the right track.
And he also says no investments yet, but still have some equity in the HELOC to use as well.
So that's the next step. So that would be pillar 4, spending interest, not principal.
Okay. All right. This
Could
person said,
you elaborate deeper on that, Joe?
What's what?
Pillar 4, what you just said.
So when I talk to people, I utilize the 4 pillars that I speak of. The first pillar is paying yourself first. The second one is being in control. The third one is money not in motion does not make money. And the fourth is spend interest, not principal. So by utilizing the policy, you're paying yourself first. That's the foundation of your banking system. When you're being in control, that means you got out of the mortgage. Now you're into the HELOC. You're in control of your IBC policy. Now you're in control of the money coming in and going out because you're using the one pot system. So now you're going to accumulate more money inside the HELOC, being your one pot system. As soon as you acquire 50 to 100,000, now you can put that out into opportunities to make you arbitrage spread, and that will bring you in interest. And now you're going to spend interest and not the principal, because now you finally went to the next ladder, and now you have everything working for you. No more liabilities. Everything is an asset. So now the interest coming in is paying for you to live in your house. So now your house is actually paying you to live in it. Now you're fully efficient.
No, super helpful. I'm just curious for Joshua. So if his money's not moving, but what he's saying, he's putting all the money into the sweep account. So he is putting everything he earns into that. He's probably paying the bills out of it, right?
Yep.
Like you teach. So if he's not aware of his actual discretionary money, like above and beyond, how does he figure out what he's setting for his base, what he's putting in the policy? Like how do you add that piece for Josh?
So the amount of money that he's acquiring in the HELOC. So if $10,000 is coming in and $5,000 is going out, the next month he's only paying interest on $5,000 less. So as he keeps acquiring money every month by not spending it, it's not the fact of saving it, it's the fact of not spending it. So 10,000 coming in, 5,000 going out, 5,000 is being left in the HELOC. So now after 2 months there's 10. 3 months there's 15, 4 months there's 20. As soon as he acquires enough of money inside that HELOC to deploy to make more cash flow, that's the next step.
Okay, so in your example, he's being really dialed in and disciplined, making the same amount of money or thereabouts every month to have that same kind of spread, and where his expenses sit and where the income going into the HELOC to look at that as discretionary funds, correct?
That would be where he's adding more money, where he's acquiring, building up more money inside the HELOC. True.
And I'm learning, so I appreciate you helping me learn, because I'm getting a lot of these calls lately where someone's not used to paying themselves. They're getting approved for a first or second lien HELOC, and then they're instantly wanting to jump in and take everything out of the HELOC and put it into a policy and then go from there. And for me, like, I don't feel comfortable with that because they don't have the discipline yet of having the consistency of paying that money into that time. Thoughts on it, feelings, like, coach me on that.
If they're going to use that HELOC to put into an opportunity or an investment, then that's where they can run it through the policy, because then you can make money A in the policy and B in the investment.
But if they're not investing, I mean, they have $57,000. Conversation today, like real life case.
Yeah.
57 grand. They've got basically $100 going out on 10,000 in credit card, 2 different credit cards, $100 a month minimum, and they've got $400 going to a $17,000 car, and their HELOC is second lien at 10.9%.
But they're still paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
So the HELOC is a separate entity. Once again, what did he spend the money in the HELOC for? Did he put his roof on? Did he spend principal instead of interest?
No, he just got approved because he was told not to get a first lien because his debt to income ratio wasn't where it needed to be. So
So Joe, there's no intention, is what he's saying. He's just saying he got a HELOC because he was told someone on the show said to get a HELOC. He doesn't know what he's doing with it. Doesn't have plans to invest.
To start a policy.
He wants to put into a policy because he thinks that's what's supposed to happen. So what's the thinking or coaching there?
So you need to put it into an investment. We have to make more money. Money not in motion does not make money. You can't just keep on spending the money, and you have to utilize it. But why didn't he deconsolidate it inside the HELOC? Why didn't he do? I can't answer all the questions because I don't have all.
Well, I mean, I have more context for you because Anthony from First Savings Bank told him to use a second lien to take care of the debts he has currently. And then when that's freed up, when he has a better debt to income ratio, come back and try for a first lien.
So what he's doing is he's taking that $50,000, he's paying off all of the other debts. Now he's consolidating inside of the HELOC. So right then and there, he freed up cash flow. Now that cash flow will be extra inside the HELOC. Now he's going to keep on utilizing that money on a monthly basis that goes into the HELOC by paying. Now he has to pay out his mortgage. He's going to pay his mortgage out of the HELOC, pay his credit cards out of the HELOC. And then by utilizing that, that's implementing the velocity banking. And he already deconsolidated all of his debts, so he already freed up whatever $2,000-$3,000 of cash flow.
Like $500.
So in that scenario,
$500. I would have to do a strategy call with them to figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah, would this be advisable? Because I and everyone watching, I don't know if this is interesting to you. We can move on if not. But a lot of people come to us and say, "Hey, I have a HELOC. I want to throw it in a policy." And the very similar situation to this, maybe a little bit of that, maybe not. Maybe they just want to put it in. Maybe they don't have investment history or good savings track record, but they want to do this strategy and they want to use a HELOC. And in that scenario with Jason, say he does consolidate some debt and frees up a little cash flow, is that, and then doing velocity banking with the HELOC, is that still advisable then to also run it through a policy first and add on to that a policy premium every month? Is that advisable in that scenario?
If he's utilizing it to put into an investment to make more money.
Yeah.
Once again, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, so I know the system. I mean, you're trying to answer questions and you don't have a HELOC. So, I mean, I would have to listen to the people and see exactly, what
I do use a first lien HELOC, so I do know but I just don't find it advisable to tell someone that they're coming in without a good savings record. They've got 3 little kids. They're not making a whole lot of money. The wife's not making a lot of money, and they want to leverage a $57,000 HELOC at 10.9%, where they're going to recapture $500 a month. So, like, where is there? That's what I'm asking. I know they're individual situations, but we're getting a lot of that lately, so it helps us think through it.
I'll add one thing onto that. So I get a lot of clients that are already doing velocity banking. Now they're adding in IBC on top of that, and that's where depending we want to look at hopefully their premiums that they're going into the policy. That's their savings or their surplus. And now if they're pulling that from the HELOC first because they're already doing a one-pot system, they're already doing velocity banking, that's fine. Put your payment in, and then as we walk through them on the implementation team of helping them look at, okay, what are their goals? Are they paying down debts? Joshua here, it sounded like the HELOC, it sounded like was his only debt. So now if he's using the policy to pay down the balance further, whether he's on a monthly or annual premium, doesn't really matter. But then eventually, in a simple world, even if he never gets to investing, which would be great, but even if he never gets to investing, eventually we talk about the big old circle. You borrow from the policy, pay something down, pay something off, and then eventually that money that was going to the mortgage, to the debt, whatever, then that can be brought back. So we're just kind of adding another circle onto the process when we borrow from the policy or borrow from a HELOC to put into the policy. Yeah, we go back to the HELOC first and then the policy second. And I think that's kind of tying it back to this question. In my mind, that's how you play honest banker.
What we don't want is a double black hole. I don't want to borrow from
Agreed. Totally agreed.
And run it through the policy and not have a place to put that money. So that's why we have to know what's happening next. That's why I kept on saying, if you're going to take the HELOC and put it into an investment to make more money, then yes, run it through the policy. But if you're borrowing just to throw it back in, now that doesn't really make too much sense. How much cash flow are we acquiring Are we knocking down 28, 32% credit cards and turning that into that 8% or 10%, whatever that number is? Well, now we're saving even more money. But I can't.
Agreed.
Every situation is totally different. There's not one person that's the same.
Yep. All right. Beat that
And
one
it's all
then.
math. It's all mathematics too. So
Yes.
All right. All right, we'll go on to the next question. That was a good discussion though. So this person said, "Don't name me for the replay," so I won't show the question. I'll just read it out. So, EP says, "How long would you let a borrower go without making a payment on a large lending amount when it's impacting you financially?" First position. What do you do next? Communication leads nowhere. So I guess what they're saying is they've lent. I'm guessing you've lent out a large amount of money to somebody, and then they're not making any payments back to you. So I would say in that case, they've defaulted. So they've defaulted on that contract. So I would actually say, what does your contract state that you can do? So it's whatever's in the documentation would be where I would go first. Is what's your recourse inside the contract? And then the second thing would be talk to an attorney potentially. Or if it's real estate, a real estate attorney would be best. But and then some more info. First position with other lenders, but I don't know who the other lenders are. Ooh, so that definitely adds a bit more to it. So that means it's probably commingled funds. I'm guessing, maybe. I don't know. Anybody have any input on that one?
I guess it's all going to depend on what is your collateral and how is that going to be, redeemed, if you will, if you have to foreclose or. But yeah, like Brian said, a lot of it's going to depend on what your agreement say, what were the borrowing terms, or their personal guarantees. So all of that's going to come into the picture.
Yeah. Time to talk to an attorney potentially. All right, navigate your ventures. I think we've seen you here before. Are you able to do a joint loan on PMC with yourself, SDIRA, and SDHSA combined?
Self-directed IRA, self-directed HSA.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to depend on really the person you're lending the money to and what the deal is able to do. I mean, technically, can you do that? Yeah, you're just combining non-qualified funds with self-directed funds, with qualified funds, which is fine to do on a deal as long as the investor, the borrower, is able to, put that together with the legal documents and contracts. So it's going to vary state by state, but from a compliance standpoint, there's no problem with doing that.
It would be 3 separate agreements, wouldn't it?
It just depends on how it's set up. But yeah, it's basically like, well, it depends how the self-directed set up. So it could be either 2 or 3 different it's almost like 3 different people, so to say, because it's self-directed.
Yeah.
Or an IRA is basically like an individual person kind of way to look at it. So
yeah,
as long as they put multiple lenders on one deal.
Because the proceeds have to go back to the IRA. So they have to be separate. They have to be tracked separately.
I think like if they're lending on 100,000 deal, and if they take 50 out of their pocket and 50 out of the self-directed, right. I think you could do it into one. It would just get split into 2 with the interest coming in.
Yeah, as long as the borrower can do it on their side with the paperwork and the contracts. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the SDIRA and HSA owned by you. Yeah. So I've done it once on a deal where I was borrowing the funds and it was coming from one person, but 2 different sources. And it was 2 separate documents we did. So 2 agreements because they were different sources of funds.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, good question. All right. So let's see here. So Latoya asked, what's your all's perspective of stacking proper P2P notes, income snowball method, and IBC?
What's a prosper P2P note?
I don't know.
I am not sure on that one.
I've been hearing about it. I actually don't totally get it, but it personally to me sounds like a scam. But I've seen people do it and have success with it, so maybe it's real. Prosper's a company where you can invest, but you kind of put your money up in the fund and they lend it out to people on like debt consolidation, credit cards, personal loans, HELOCs. Like they'd lend it out and you get a really, really high rate of return as an investor putting money in Prosper. And I think the idea is like you You put up money to Prosper, they lend it out, they give you a return monthly, then you use the returns to keep stacking and then reinvesting in those loans. I've seen people get like 100% annual rate of returns and things like that. That's why I'm super skeptical of it. But I've heard a lot of people doing this lately.
Yeah, I've heard this too. I think I forget the name of the company. I think it's some other, like wealth building club or company that does. I think it's getting into doing lending also with some leverage as well. So, I mean, in that case, then, tying it back to IBC, okay, now you're borrowing from your policy, you're investing it into an opportunity, whatever you have in that opportunity, whether it's a lending deal or an investment, eventually then once you're ready to cash that out or bring that back, then you would just use that to repay the policy. I've seen some clients do that too.
And maybe it's Tardis.
Yeah, Targus. That's the one I've heard
Tardis,
people.
That's it. Yeah.
Targus.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
from my perspective, and I don't know if this Prosper, P2P notes, if those are more of like a fund, but I prefer to put my money in things that have collateral backing that. So it's one of those things, if it's a fund and there's nothing really to back your money, for me, I'm not interested, but that's where I would kind of look at is what is protecting your money if you were to put your cash in this Prosper P2P thing. Do you actually get, are you actually on the note? So I would look at the collateral side of it is what I would be looking at.
Yeah, to Carson's point, you got to understand what you're actually putting your money in, and you said too of is it just a if I don't know if P2P is like person to person or what that stands for, but yeah, understanding the mechanics of where you're really deploying your money to.
The way that I'm reading this is and IBC. So if you're utilizing the IBC as the foundation of your money, running it through the policy and then investing it, what you're doing is you're hedging against that investment. Your foundation is still, the IBC. I try to run as much money through my IBC as possible.
Yeah, I have a client they're working actually with Tardis doing it, and they're having a good experience. It's not a recommendation, but they're having a good experience. Keep in mind, it's not a long-term experience though, but they're also doing infinite banking. So what they're doing is they're taking some of the proceeds from the investments and some of their income and whatever they have, and they're funding the policy, and then they're borrowing back out and putting it back into Tardis, and they're completing a circle there. But that's their choice. Is we set up the policy for them, but that's their choice. But that is what they're doing. So kind of similar. All right, let's see here. So Dream Nebula says, which part of the United States is going to do well as the economy struggles? Does location matter? Depends on what you're talking about. What kind of economy? What kind of what are you looking at? So I mean, real estate is one thing. Jobs are another thing. When I used to do a lot of subject to investing back in over 10 years ago, I would always look at who are the 3 biggest employers in any area that I was going to acquire property in. And obviously the guys who are doing real estate can understand this. So I looked for, it was military, it was government, and it was education. So I looked for those 3 big ones because if those are like the 3 biggest employers, there's usually not a big issue with employment when the markets are fluctuating. But that was just my personal experience. So it depends on what you're looking at. I don't know, anybody else have any comments on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to a lot of the WTF shows that Chris and Steven do, and it's been a very common theme for many of the shows, which is, as the economy changes, as the markets change, as the markets decline, if you're heavy into stocks, you're going to see like a 2008 type of a thing again. So I guess the question I would have for this person is like, where do you have your money? What do you have your money in? And it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. If you've got your money locked up in stock market or wherever it's going to be, you might have some struggles.
Yeah.
So, a lot of us here, we do infinite banking because we want the control of our own money. We do private lending because we want something that has collateral, so there's a lot of layers to this, like Brian was saying. But your local economy could struggle just based on, the job market, or, say there's a bunch of layoffs in a particular type of a economy. So it's a tough question. It's a broad question, but hopefully that helps.
Well, I'll tell you this. I was reading something earlier on What the F. We were talking about jobs, and you guys know Mike Rowe, the
Yeah.
guy from Dirty Jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Dirty Jobs guy.
Yeah, he's really good. So he was on. He was talking about tradespeople, so tradesmen, and those kinds of plumbers and electricians, construction, that kind of thing. And he was just talking about the incredible shortage of tradespeople we have in this country right now. There's industries. He spoke specifically about an industry that builds nuclear submarines, the maritime industrial industry, and he was saying that a small little I don't have it in front of me, but whatever the name of the kind of the group that oversees the maritime industrial industry that hires people to build these submarines, they're actively looking for 100,000 tradespeople to hire right now for this, and they can't find anybody. And so they're reaching out to people like Mike Rowe and his foundation to say, hey, where can we find these kinds of people? Like, where can we start hiring? And his answer was, look at 8th graders, because it's almost changing the mindset of, hey, you don't need to go to college to get these BS degrees and all this stuff. Like, there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of opportunity out there. And especially, in my opinion, as we see not only the economy and what's going to happen, in my opinion, over the next 2-3 years and whatnot, but even longer term with AI and robots and robotics and everything happening. I mean, it's going to replace a lot of jobs of people that have college educations right now. But guess what a robot can't do? A robot can't come over here and install a shower into an outdoor shower in my house, like the guy this morning was that we talked about on What the F, and all these different things. So to me, like that's where I would be looking, is if you're worried about the economy, struggles your job, like teach yourself a trade, like learn something and look at get into that. So that'd be my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Cool. See here. Oops. All right, Andrew said, any video resources explaining using a first lien HELOC along with IBC? Yes, it was actually recorded this morning. I've explained the HELOC portion well done, but my spouse has a hard time understanding using HELOC debt to create a policy. So here on Saturday, there will be a recording in Chris's YouTube channel of Joe and Stephen and I this morning talking about that exact topic. So I recommend checking that one out. There you go. See here. Shad Ross says, I have a rental house with 3 streams of income from it. It is already cash flowing and a $200K first mortgage. Should I get a HELOC on it for velocity banking or to jumpstart infinite banking?
Mr. HELOC?
Once again, what are you going to do with the money?
What are we solving?
Put it to work. First of all, it's a rental property, so that would be like CMG, I believe, still is doing it, right, Craig, for rentals?
Yeah, so CMG will do up to 2 investment properties. So they're the only ones I know that do that at this point.
Yeah, the people that I use in Tennessee is still for primary.
So it's an option, sounds like, but once again, obviously talk to a mentor about it and run through the scenarios and what are we trying to solve, what are we trying to accomplish, or what are we overcoming? If it's a fit, then it's a yes. If it's not a fit, then another option.
I mean, definitely pulling the equity out of the 2x4s and putting it to work is, great, awesome.
Yeah, and Chad, if you want to reach out to me, I'm craig@chrisnoggle.com, and I can get you connected with the CMG folks. That's who I work with.
There you go. All right. Steve says, when paying the policy premiums, does any of the paid premiums go to your commissions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, your premium deposits, a portion of it's always going to pay commissions, because what's buying the whole life, what goes to the base is what the commissions are predominantly paid off of. Like, that's why we always say we give up 60 to 70 to 90% of commissions, is because the smaller part is designed to buy the whole life. The bigger part is going towards the cash value, and that's what you're using for the banking part of the structure.
Yeah, here's the kicker with that, though, is there's no way to avoid that. So that's built into the insurance carrier's products, and the fees and costs and everything that's involved. So if you were to call an insurance carrier, let's just use One America as an example. It's one of the companies that we use. So if you were to call One America direct and say, hey, I'd like to start a whole life policy with you, but I want to avoid the insurance agent's commissions, that's not a thing. Like that's not possible. That's not an option. So you could call the insurance carrier direct, get the exact same policy, but without all of our personalization and strategy involved in creating it the right way for you and working with you to solve goals and the ongoing support for your entire lifetime. You wouldn't get any of that, but you get the exact same policy, just not built as well. So it's hard to look at it that way, but yes, the commissions are built into the cost of the overall, of that policy.
Let's see here.
I always tell people my address and they can send me checks, but no one ever does. I only get checks from the insurance carriers. I don't know why. I'm going to try with you again. I'm hoping you're sending me some cool silver since I don't buy it.
I was just looking at
right here. I'll send you some right here.
Man, you guys are cool. I don't
look at this one. I just got this one. It's like a little. Let me see if I can hold it close. I lose the light, but it's like the American Express guy with like a bunch of dollars. I don't know. Anyway, it's hard to see.
I've got coins for my 3-cup setup for the dividends. That's all I got.
Michelangelo, remember the Ninja Turtles? The Ninja Turtles. I just got this little Ninja Turtle guy. Donald Duck. This just came.
Nice.
My address again is okay. Back to Phelps.
People. That one's cool, right?
Oh,
that's I have that one too, or something similar. Yeah.
I always keep my bullet here.
All right.
One more. Look at this little thing I got. It's 1 ounce, but it's like built as a like a totem pole. So it's like instead of a coin, it's like a totem pole. That one's cool, right? So anyway, I just got all this stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So follow up to Chad's comment about his house. So I bought the house using 12 new credit cards with 12 months 0 interest. Ballsy. I'll say that, and cash them out for around 120K down payment. The value of the house is around 450 to 500. So yeah, that is getting strategic right there. And as long as you have a plan, as long as you have an exit plan, an exit strategy, that's what I'd say. There's a lot going on right there. All right.
If it works, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Shauna, who's that?
Where is Mama Bear? Come on.
Yeah. For those of you who have attended a money tank, what would you describe as a key benefit for someone considering going but doesn't know what it even means, money tank?
What does it mean? Is there a tank?
So what's a benefit for someone who's been?
I love meeting all the people that I talk to and that I work with. I love that the most.
There you go.
And unlike the private money club where you're seeing deals online, you're communicating with people online, you're maybe even having a video call with an investor, you can actually see them face to face, have dinner with them, talk about all sorts of different things. So I think it's just that personal touch where you get to know someone even better. But yeah, that's kind of goes across the board for all these live events. It's just deeper connections, getting a little bit more information about who's out there, what deals do they have, and what's it look like working with them.
Yeah.
Snag, anything to add about Money Tank before we move on?
What's Money Tank?
Sean wanted to know what it was like to, the biggest takeaways.
I don't know. I'm the one on stage hosting the thing the entire time I'm seeing it. I want to hear from you guys what it's about. It's education, it's networking, it's relationships, it's opportunities, it's deals, it's building wealth. It's real estate.
People working with people. It's people working with people. That's what we're prescribed to here. That's why we love infinite banking, because it brings it back to the you and me level. And then when you go to these live events, like everyone's described, you're building new relationships. You're finding people that and you want to work with, right? And then you can vet them even further in person. So and have fun.
And I attend, I don't know, a dozen events a year. I've hosted well over 2,000 events in my lifetime. So I know kind of what people want at these events. So we have a really good mixture of foundational content with new content with the correct speaker times, but still a lot of networking and time spent together involved. So, because a lot of masterminds you go to, it's like all stage speaker. Oh, you don't have no time to talk with other people, or maybe it's just the same speakers over and over, things like that. So we really try and, keep all that into account. And this next one in Dallas, May 8th and 9th is just from the agenda that I have and the people I know that are going to it, it'll be by far the best money tank we've done yet. And if you've been to a money tank, it's going to be a lot of new people there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So May 8th and 9th, Dallas, Texas. Get a ticket now. It's going to sell out.
Awesome. All right. So Christian asked, what are your thoughts on tax liens to dip toes into real estate, or would banknotes be better?
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I haven't personally done the tax liens, but I've studied them a lot, and I've done a lot of trainings on those, and they're a good way to do it, but they're very passive. Tax liens are very passive. If you're just buying it and then it gets paid off and you get a return on it, it's very passive. But you have to have the knowledge on how they work to make it work. So training or a course or a mentor, in my experience.
I don't think it's a way to dip into real estate either. I don't think it's a whole separate strategy that it can be good. I mean, I know somebody that teaches it the right way. If you really want to learn, I can connect you. Notes are great too. I would personally, I prefer notes. But again, it just depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, from my experience years ago, I got interested in tax liens, and so I started studying them, trying to understand how to do them, and then I started going to tax sales, and my balloon got popped, and I'll tell you why. You're sitting there, you're all excited about buying these and bidding on these tax liens, but these institutional folks come in and they'll just buy everything up and overbid, and so it was really, really hard for me to compete with them. So that's why I kind of just dropped on the floor and moved on. But I agree with what Stephen was saying on the banknotes. That's what we do now. We've got, multiple banknotes, buying the mortgages on houses. So it's a lot easier because you can kind of, find those through, paper stack or what other, types of systems you want to look for those banknotes on, and do your homework, do your due diligence, and then put your bids in. So I don't know, tax liens were cool, but unless you're one of the big boys with lots of money coming in buying like whole lots of tax liens, it's tough competition.
I learned them through Ted Thomas. You guys know him, he's a character. All right, Rebecca says, can I take a loan against my policy and loan it to my business to pay off my car loan and pay myself back with interest? How's that work? Yeah, you could, but I'm not quite certain why you're loaning it to your business unless your business actually owns the car. What's the benefit of going through the business? That's the question I'd have right there.
I would assume the vehicle is probably owned by the business is what I'm guessing. And in that case, if you own the policy personally, I would just, from a paperwork perspective, create a promissory note between you personally and the business. That way you loan the business the money at, say, 8 or 9%. And that percentage that you're loaning to the business needs to be equivalent to what a bank would offer you. And so at that point, your business can then start making the car loans back to you. I'm not a CPA, so you see all the, just little asterisks here. I'm not a CPA, can't give you that tax advice, but I believe that the business then has a deduction, and then you can have the business pay that to you, and then you have I guess you have a gain on that interest coming back to you. So anyway, that's how it flows. You would loan it to the business with a promissory note. Business would pay the interest back to you. You would put that back in your policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Let's see here. Stanford Hicks. I want a new policy through MYOB. So I'm thinking it says I want to get a new policy through BYOB, but it currently has, and with Mass Mutual, Apex Variables. What's your thoughts on applying the concept with this account? So I think he wants a new policy through MYOB, but currently has a policy with Mass Mutual. So we'd have to look at the policy, to be honest. Without seeing the illustration, seeing the in-force illustration, we have no idea what that current policy looks like, how efficient it is, how it can be utilized. So what I would recommend doing is just scheduling a call with one of our team members and then reviewing that policy illustration to see what it is. And we can give you some feedback on it and look at options.
Yeah, ask for an in-force, INFORCE illustration so we can see, not like the one that was issued if you had it for a couple of years, but where is it now? How's it doing? What is it? So we can kind of see.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's see here. J10 says, what medications are considered okay based on your experiences, cholesterol, blood pressure, etc.?
It depends on your age and stuff, Jay. But yeah, cholesterol, blood pressure. I mean, I've seen people get standard non-tobacco ratings with those. So depends on how much, depends on history, depends on other variables, but they're typically okay. Anything to add, anybody, for that one? It's pretty easy.
Yep. And I've had, I've had people that have diabetes that are on medications get policies. The big kicker there is no insulin. Once they get the
Where's
insulin,
their A1C? Again, there's going to be different variables for all this stuff.
Yep. Let's see here. So navigate your ventures. Regarding that previous comment about Money Tank, biggest takeaway was being exposed to new ideas that I never would have thought of. Example, LLC, tax strategy, trust exposures, note investing, etc. So there you go.
Shane is the ultimate student. He is everywhere. He is supporting. He's learning, and he has completely changed his mindset and his money trajectory. And it started with his mindset of just taking action and doing it. So I'd like to shout that out for Shane because he's crushing it.
Yep. Okay. Let's see here. This one. So David says, we owe $60K on our home and $25K on our car, only $200 on credit card. So pretty much nothing there. Can I take HELOC, start a IBC, pay off the house and car, and make the same payments back to the IBC? Bottom line is yes, you can. You just got to do the math on it and follow the money trail, the circle, and it has to make sense to you. And from a cash flow perspective, from all that. So, but that is what we talked about this morning, what Joe and I did. You can do that. It's a long-term strategy, by the way. So it's long-term. And you'd have to understand velocity banking on the HELOC at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
however, I mean, the math doesn't have to be done all by David, though. We've got a tool called Debt Blaster. We can run the math for you. So if you want us to do that, I'm happy to help you out, or you can book a call with any of our mentors. But it's what we do is we take your debt profile, we'd run it through this thing called the Debt Blaster, and we'll spit out some numbers for you to figure out if this makes sense or not.
All right, Steve, follow-up question to the commission thing. How many years do you receive the commissions from the premiums? Basically, I would say 1 year is what we typically answer, and then it drops down to like maybe 5% of that in like the following years. So
the first year is the majority of the commission. There's a small amount annually for into the future, but it's a very, very, very small percentage.
Yeah, like pennies in the dollar.
Right.
So let's just do some quick math for Steve. So let's say that you're putting $10,000 a year into a policy. And the way we design it, the base portion of that policy, of that 10,000, it could be 2,500, it could be 2,000, it could be 3,000, it could be 4,000, just depends on the policy design.
Yeah, just say 2,500.
Let's say it's 2,500. Okay. So we would get a commission off that 2,500, and then in the subsequent years, it's about 1 to 2% of that 2,500. So, on the subsequent years, you might be putting in $10,000, and our commissions are a whopping $30-$40.
Yep. There you go. All right. Leah says, if I buy a rental house using a HELOC, should I then refinance with a 30-year mortgage to pay down the HELOC, then buy another using the HELOC? Huh? No. I mean, right off the bat, I would say no, because the whole purpose of the HELOC is to not have a mortgage.
Yeah.
It's to use velocity banking so that you pay down the debts significantly faster, which is the opposite of the 30-year mortgage. Now, what you could do, though, is you could buy a home with a HELOC, velocity banking, knock the balance down, and then you leverage that HELOC as a down payment on another property using another HELOC if you want. So you can do that. But you'd have to have that kind of mapped out to make sense.
That's math again.
When we're here too, since we're talking about all these different strategies, all these different things, just remember it's BYOB, becoming your own banker, the function of banking, the function of changing one thing, of paying yourself first. So I have all these questions, we're answering, we're going through it. Let's always keep in mind, like, let's love ourselves a little bit more. Let's pay ourselves a little bit more. Let's look to pay ourselves 10 to 20% of what we're earning first before we're thinking about utilizing other strategies, other things, other ways to make quick hacks to get rich quick or to get out of the situation we're in. Tons of cool knowledge here, but it is infinite banking concept because we're teaching you how to change your thinking. Bless you, Carson.
Thank you.
All right.
And we do got Joe. He's got 15 plus years. Brian, Craig, all these guys know velocity banking really, really well. I mean, better than I do. I'm using it, but I wouldn't be teaching it to people yet. It's only been like 9 months, and I'm still figuring stuff out. So,
Yeah.
It
So
just
Lisa,
comes down to the numbers, man. That's where it really comes down to.
Lisa. Okay, say I have a 10K a year policy, so that's a premium deposit. Okay, and do a dump in of 40,000, so that's a PUA up front, and then when and how much would I be able to use of that? There are different types of policies you create, so it's different for each. That is correct. Yes, you answered your own question there. There are different types of policies, different companies that are all structured differently. So what we do as mentors, or IBC practitioners, is look at your situation, what you're trying to solve, and how you're going to fund it, and then structure the most efficient way possible to accomplish that goal. But generally speaking, of the 40, 90%, approximately 85 to 90% of that to cash value within the first 30 days. And then of the 10,000, anywhere from 50 to 70% of that to cash value in the first 30 days would be kind of general numbers.
yeah, it's the easiest way to think about this. For anyone's listening to what Brian just said, when you're thinking about dump-ins, it's usually 80 to 90% to be safe, right? But it's a larger portion. So if you're looking at what the strategy is for yourself based on your long-term and tying it to like what's your first thing you're going to use it for, that 10,000, like Brian says, 5,000 or 6,000 or $7,000, depending on the strategy. And you're only talking about a difference of $1,000 to $2,000 in that $10,000. So then how important that is to you reaching your goal, because it will have later, longer term effects if you're thinking long term when you're coming into the conversation.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Chris is saying, looking to buy a new truck. Should I pull the funds from a all-in-one HELOC, put it into a policy, then buy the truck? Sell my current truck and pay half of the truck total off? Thoughts? I mean, Joe, we talked about this kind of this morning. So, what you're buying, there are a lot of liabilities. So there's no asset really. Yeah, there's an asset, I guess, in the policy, but there's not. When you borrow from the HELOC to go do that, it's a more efficient way, but it's not an asset because the truck's not a cash flowing asset.
So Chris is utilizing the all-in-one, right? So that's the one pot system. Now he has a few policies. So he pays the policies out of the HELOC. He's going to take the money from the HELOC, run it through the policies, hit the cash value button, bring it back into the HELOC. Now, that HELOC needs to be put into motion. 50,000 needs to be put into an opportunity. That money coming in, $500, $1,000 a month, that is what can go pay the truck off. Because now he's utilizing the principal, he's putting it into motion, he's receiving interest. Now the interest can pay for the truck.
Yeah. And the one thing to keep in mind there, that when you do an investment, you got to understand that you're adding something to the whole mix that you've got to be responsible with and understand, know, like, and trust, all that kind of stuff. Because when you introduce risk to anything, the risk really lies with you. You're the one that's going to be responsible. And I did a Money School TV thing on how to analyze risk on the deal and all these things, and didn't record it, unfortunately. Yeah, Jason and I had the same problem with Zoom, but you just got to make sure you understand that risk. So but I like where you're thinking. If you're thinking of using the HELOC for the truck or a policy for the truck, you're thinking better than 99.9% of everybody else out there. So props to you there, just right there. And even if you don't have an investment in the mix, you're still doing it better than the traditional way. You're controlling more of the deal and more of the debt because you are the bank. As Jason said, this whole thing is about being the bank. So
He's paying himself first. He's utilizing the policy as the banking aspect. He took control by getting out of a mortgage, going into simple interest and a HELOC, so he's in control of that. The next thing is money not in motion does not make money.
Yep. Love it.
So kind of where my mind's going is if you have enough capital to do the ultimate, which would be finance, take the money out of your system. I'll call it your warehouse, because when we look at the all-in-one, when we look at the policies, this is the way I look at my own system, is it's a warehouse of cash. I want to get as much money as I can into my policies for that compounding. But when I go to do a job, sometimes it makes more sense for me to pull it right out of my HELOC. Sometimes it makes sense to pull it out of my policies. So I just say that's a warehouse of wealth. Now I'm going to go buy a truck. So I take the money out of the warehouse, I go buy the truck. And if I have capitalized enough, I can also take enough money out of that warehouse to go put into an investment that will do what Joe's talking about, where it will create money that I can, pay back the truck. So it takes a lot more capital to do the job. So now let's say you don't have enough capital to do that picture. And I see that you just put a comment in there that you otherwise would just go get a loan. All right, well, let's say you go to the bank and you get a car loan. Now take your HELOC money, put it to work. That money can come in and pay the car loan and maybe, some of the HELOC cost. But eventually you're going to have an asset that's out there creating money, and your car is going to be paid off, and you still have your asset creating money. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki always talked about when he said, if you want to buy something, go buy an asset that buys that something.
Absolutely.
So a lot of, I guess, what I would look at, Chris, would just be, what do you have in capital and how can that be used? Do you have enough to put it into an investment and buy the truck? Or do you have enough just to buy the truck?
Yep. All right. Robert says, I live in San Diego. Would you please explain what Chris's seminar in San Diego tomorrow is about? Well, so apparently because of tornadoes in New York, which I didn't know was a thing, his flight got canceled. And so he's not going to be there. So it got canceled, man. Sorry. But yeah, so he wasn't able to fly out today. From what I
First thing I thought must have been those big Doppler radars creating tornadoes or something, right? So something crazy.
Where's my hat? My tinfoil hat.
Yeah. So Chris is still flying out just tomorrow now. He just can't do the pop-up event tonight, but he'll still be in an event tomorrow out in San Diego. It's Brandon Elliott's event. Credit, what's it called? Credit Council Elite.
Okay. Maybe if you have any information, you can put it in the chat then.
Let me see if I can find.
So Jay said for you, Joe. He said I found a bank to be able to take a first lien HELOC in downstate New York.
Oh, all right, awesome.
Yeah. Share that information. Share it with Joe or
Yeah, let me know. Because we can't. First lien doesn't do it in New York, so
yeah. So Joshua said, when and where can I find Joe and Brian's new HELOC video? So go to Chris's YouTube channel. So it's what is it, Steven? His YouTube channel?
Chris Noggle YouTube.
It's at the Chris Noggle.
Yeah. So go there to subscribe to that one, and then it should be there this weekend. So it should be added there as Wealth Wednesday webinar.
So you'll need to look at on Chris's YouTube, look for the playlists, and in the playlist you'll see Wealth Webinar section, and then you can just go look at the past systems there, past shows, I should say.
J10, for anyone using PMC, do you already have an attorney in place to review the deals? Anybody using attorneys in there? I mean, you can always get one on your own, but there's resources inside PMC on due diligence and that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you're new to it, I mean, it's always good to have an investment attorney on your side that can review deals. So I've had that done for me before, and it's been very good to have. But
I've had corporate capital look at some contracts in the past, and so perhaps they could help. But typically, an attorney's not going to necessarily review the deal. They'll look at the paperwork to see if the contract is
promissory note, yeah,
solid, right? But as far as reviewing the deal and making sure the deal is good and doing all the due diligence, I mean, that I don't believe the attorneys are going to do that for you.
No, they don't do due diligence. Just mainly it's contract review, I thought. But yeah. All right, Knights of Israel. Is IBC still worth it, even when the loan interest rate is higher than the growth interest rate in the policy to the point you're not making a spread? Man, this is everybody has a different perspective, but I'm going to say absolutely yes, it makes a lot of sense because there are two different types of rates or two different loan rates are calculated differently. It's not and for me personally, I don't look at it as apples to apples because especially at the beginning of the policy, you're earning dividends on a larger balance than you're actually than you can even borrow. So it's not even a comparison. And then the dividend rate doesn't change when you borrow, but depending on how you deal with the loan, you can actually effectively manipulate the loan rate. So it's simple math, right? It's math is the math is the math. If you borrow $10,000 at 5% and pay it off in 6 months, what's the annualized interest you're going to pay on that? It's not 5%, it's 2.5%. So they're calculated completely differently. So, I mean, for me, it's a yes.
I ask, are they talking in year 1 or year 20?
Yeah, that's true.
I come back all the time just to the example in our 90-minute presentation where the guy's got the 25,000 and the savings account earning 4%, but he's paying 6% on the loan. Even in that case, you're making money earning 4, paying 6. So the interest rates on the insurance policies, they fluctuate. They'll adjust a little bit up or down each year, each policy year. So again, and to Joe's point, so not only can that make sense in year 1, but it makes even more sense in year 10, 20. This is not a get rich quick. This is Nelson Nash teaches us to think long range. So it makes even more sense in the long run too.
Yeah. And for that, you can actually in that example Ethan was just talking about, you can actually be earning 4 and borrowing at 8 and still make money.
Yeah.
Right. Because
go that far.
I've run the math because it didn't make sense to me. So like I've done that. I got the calculators, ran the math. You can make it so it's double. After that, it starts not working, but you're still in control of it. You still have your money doing 3 things, Knights of Israel. You're still saving where it's guaranteed to grow. You're using someone else's money that you have control over, and you're guaranteeing and protecting your family, all with that same money.
Yeah,
we've been talking a lot about HELOCs and other things too, and I think the key to all this is quit looking at the rates of return and look at the volume of interest, because when you start focusing more on volumes of interest of how much interest is this thing versus how much volume of interest is this thing, a lot of these types of questions will become more clear to you that you're compounding on a growing number. And so that interest that you're earning is much bigger than paying interest on a declining balance. And that's really what's going on behind the scenes. So just start switching your perspective, and who cares about interest rates? Think about volume of interest, and I think you'll
think long term. Like most people listening, not you guys, of course, because you guys are all seasoned vets, been watching, asking questions. So not you guys, but everyone else that's new and seeing this. Most people are conditioned to think, how much can I afford month to month? They're not asking, what does this cost me over 5 years, 6 years, 15 years, 30 years? And that's where the thinking has to change. Like you want to look at things thinking long range. And if you do that and look what it actually costs, that's what he means by the volume of interest.
Yeah. And also keep in mind, I mean, as Jason alluded to, there's multiple benefits to infinite banking. Like I would never hinge the entire concept or doing it based upon the interest rates. Protection, privacy, guarantee, generational wealth. I mean, there's all these other layered benefits that are just amazing. So those outweigh to me most of that stuff in the first place. So Koi asked, do you guys have a calculator that we can use? No, there's no calculator really, because for infinite banking, by the way, because there's just too many factors, too many variables, and we're highly trained on even how to use the software and do infinite banking. So there is no there's no magic software to plug it in and spits out, because there's just so many variables that you have to understand. It's why we do mentor calls and we ask lots of questions. So
I guess the question I would ask is, what are you wanting to calculate? Because we may be able to help you with that, but if you're trying to calculate, for example, what does infinite banking look like if I'm using it for debt? What does it look like if I'm using it for investing? What does it look like if I'm, securing a major or financing a major purchase? We have all these internal calculators to do that, but we're not at the point right now. Just say stay tuned. I'm not going to say a lot about it, but just stay tuned. Someday you may be able to do this on your own, but right now, if you wanted to run some use cases, then just let us know.
I want to say everybody's looking at this with number wise, thinking of an investment. This is not an investment. This is not a product. This is a system. This is something to solve a problem. This is to take control of your money. This is to pay yourself first. That's what I wanted to bring up.
All right, a couple last questions here. Divine asked, hey, Chris, how are standard contracts supposed to be negotiated if the lender insists on using it versus allowing changes? They often require all rights, titles, interest to be given to the company. What contracts? Divine, I'm not sure what you're referring to. What contracts? Or is it lending, private money club? Or
I'd suspect they're talking about private money club. But I mean, if they're not willing to negotiate on the contract, elements you want, I mean, you don't have to do business with them either. So, I typically, when I'm doing private lending, I'm asking for personal guarantees. Wanting to make sure the deal, is structured the way I want it. And if not, then there's someone else I'll go work with.
Move on. Yep. All right. That was the last of the questions. So we got
Did it again.
Yeah.
Did it again.
There was one last one I was going to bring up with one of my clients, but we're still kind of going through the motions on it, trying to figure out. So it's a couple. One person doesn't have income, the other one does. The other one who has an income is potentially uninsurable and has some work coverage, and so the insurance company is asking a lot of questions about the other spouse because of that situation. So we're it's a learning process. So it's right there. So. Bottom line is if you're a spouse that doesn't have income, but your other spouse does have income, you can get coverage based upon their income, but the insurance company is going to look at their insurability first and their coverage, or both. So you can get a policy, but they're going to look at the main source of income to insure it first. And if that person's uninsurable, then they'll go to you, and then your coverage is based upon their numbers, their income, that kind of stuff. But the insurance company is going to ask questions. And this one's actually, they're challenging the insurability of the spouse, but we just found out that the spouse has actually a lot of death benefit coverage through their employer. So we can use that. So it's an ongoing thing, but yeah, we dive into the weeds on these kind of things for you. Oh, one last question. If something comes up in 5 years, incapable of working anymore, don't have income, then your policy or policies aren't being paid into, your cash you put into it is available to live on. You can do that temporarily, yes. It would not be a short-term or a long-term solution. But yeah, you can. There's options. We actually have not a white paper, but a document we send out for that scenario, so you can understand the options you have with the policy. But yes, you can live on it, but that would be a short-term solution until you replace your income, in my opinion.
At 5 years, it would be a run-through anyway.
Yeah. So
we did it again. Another Ask Me Anything Wednesday wrapping up. Snaggy, you got this? Close us down.
Yeah, baby. That was a good one today. Some really good questions actually coming in, and appreciate everybody hopping on. Thank you to the Money Mentors over here. You guys are awesome. Great non-financial advice given today. So
say non-financial advisors, attorneys, or CPAs in any shape or form.
Right. With that said, Chris Nagel's little pop-up event tonight in San Diego was canceled due to a flight cancellation. He will still be in San Diego at the credit event with Brandon Elliott tomorrow in San Diego, though. If anybody needs anything, reach out to us. My email, snagy@chrisnagel.com. privatemoneyclub.com, whatever you got over there. And what do we got? What do we got tomorrow? Quick start. So Thursdays are the PMC Quick Start webinar we do every Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern. That teaches you the basics of private money lending and private money borrowing. So join us if you're looking to move your money. Otherwise, we'll be back next week for all the shows, and check out the wealth webinar recording with myself, Brian, and Joe. That was recorded earlier today. It'll be on the YouTube channel at the Chris Nagel Saturday. If you missed that, you definitely want to check it out. All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you. Peace.